Yes, hi. Thank you all for coming here. My name is Stephen Sundra. I'm an attorney in Washington, D.C., representing the family of Simran Singh. And I had a couple of questions that related to the civil rights issues that you raised. One is in Simran's case, the police and prosecutors have refused to return the clothing that Simran died in to the family. They refused to provide a copy of the 911 tape. They refused to provide interviews that were taken of the suspects at the scene, which was on a off-ramp of a highway in which Mr. Singh had been declothed. Was wearing only his shorts at the time. His head had been shaven. There were allegations that the individual that choked him, and that's admitted that he was choked for 10 minutes, was a current or former U.S. Marine. Is the refusal of the police to provide evidence to the family at their request, even when served with a subpoena, or to provide it to any other law enforcement agency, concealing, in effect, evidence that needs to be reviewed by whether it's a prosecutor or whether it's a civil judge or a civil jury, to investigate the circumstances, to conceal the victim's own clothing and refuse to return it? Okay. Is that a civil rights violation? And second, a follow-up on that, and in this case, there is evidence that Mr. Simran Singh was forcibly placed into a car in D.C., traveled across state lines to Virginia, and was murdered in Virginia. Would that not fall within the jurisdiction of the FBI to investigate?
Do you want to take the kidnapping and I'll do the civil rights? Or do you want to do both?
Well, it's an obstruction of justice charge, obviously, from A to Z. It comes across as obstruction of justice charge. Would you say that, Brett?
No, I probably wouldn't say that without knowing all the facts to begin with. At this point, I'm hearing, what was just relayed to us without knowing the facts of, did they give you an explanation of why they didn't return those items and things like that. So I don't want to get into the right and wrong of how the case is handled. What I would like to stick to are the issues of when is it appropriate for the FBI to get involved. And that's the piece that I'll turn over to Cynthia when you talked about crossing state lines coming from the district and into Virginia where the murder may have happened. Cynthia is probably better familiar with the facts of the case than I am.
What's unfortunate many times, as you can imagine, is I can't always answer every question that you have. I can't oftentimes leave you with the feeling that you got all the answers from the FBI and now you're happy because you have information. Oftentimes I can't give you that. And I think primarily with this case, I don't know anything except for what the family has told me. I don't know what the police officers did or didn't do. I do know what's alleged, but that's not a fact. That's allegations. Whether he was taken across state lines, is that a criminal kidnapping issue? That's for the police to determine. We can take a look at that as part of a comprehensive review of Simran's case without question. But to say that if the police department inappropriately kept his clothing or inappropriately shaved him, if there's issues like that, it's just difficult for me to comment without knowing the entire story and having the entire investigative file in front of me to review. So, again, I think the best position for the family is that, like I said, this has been turned over to our Washington field office for their review, and that's the most appropriate way to handle it in the Bureau.
Okay, how do you investigate hate crimes? Recently, a Hispanic male violently beat a sick gentleman in New Jersey and casually walked away from the scene. As of today, no arrests have been made. How do you, what is the motive here? Hate is a motive here. And yet, there is nobody to arrest that person. So how do you investigate?
If the family in New Jersey feels that it was their son,
Well,
it was their child.
I do not know.
Okay. If the family in New Jersey believes that their relative, their child perhaps, was assaulted and was beaten because of his race or his religion or his national origin, and again, because he was engaging in some federally protected activity, which is what we call it under the statute, which simply could be he's walking on a public street, or he's on a public sidewalk, or he's outside of a public restaurant. If he's engaging in that type of behavior and he's attacked because of his race or religion or national origin, the FBI may be able to get involved. And I would encourage the family to contact the FBI in Newark, New Jersey, and submit the complaint to them. We can get involved with a victim complaint. If the police department needs help in that situation, we can get involved at their request. So there's different ways that we can get involved.
But when it is left to the county prosecutor, he can determine whether or not to move with the case, and the case is closed.
Well, the one benefit that the FBI has is we are a separate jurisdiction. So if, let's say, for example, the state of New Jersey or that county prosecutor would choose not to file any charges whatsoever, and the FBI in Newark, for example, would believe that this may be a federal hate crime, we are a separate jurisdiction. We can bring separate criminal charges against those perpetrators and prosecute those individuals in federal court, which is separate than state court. So even if that state or county or local law enforcement department and prosecutor's office would decide not to pursue something, we still can. That would not preclude us from acting.
So if we want to narrow it down, if theft is not an issue and if assailant is not known to the victim, then can we safely conclude that it was a bias crime?
We would need some evidence of bias. So the normal evidence that we find, the usual evidence that we find, is the victim or other witnesses who saw the accident or saw the incident would hear racially derogatory words being spoken by the perpetrator, or possibly there would be spray painting that we left behind, or some type of graffiti that would be racial or religious in nature that would be derogatory. So we need to find some evidence of bias. We can't simply assume it's there.